are responsibility, respect for others, sincerity, modesty, and moderation. And just as a review, we're having the things that we're covering are still based on that first talk that we had, where it was talking about the two different reactions that you have, and that you're sorting out which part of you is reacting. So we're slowing down and to see I have two reactions. There's my fast reaction, and then you're looking at, okay, now there's going to be one that's more virtuous, or one that's going to be more uh, helpful for a long term, making a difference in helping others or helping the children. So this first one is responsibility. And so responsible people accept the consequences of their actions, be they intentional or unintentional, so that others can benefit as much as possible, or at least not suffer. And they're also concerned about those over whom they have influence, and people that you have influence over, you're concerned how they act also. Okay, so that's kind of a general idea of being responsible. And so if I have a thing to share screen here. Okay, so if you have the handout, so it says mine is disabled from screen sharing. So the handouts that I sent
Let me share.
this week.
Let me make you the host. Sorry.
Okay.
You have the PowerPoint to share?
I have, let's see if we can do that. It's just the handouts that I emailed to people this week. So it's not
the one
put into
is it the one you sent to me?
Yes.
PowerPoint. I'll share it shortly.
So if you can share it from your screen, that's fine. Yes.
Yeah, I will share shortly. Just a few minutes.
Okay, so we'll go through. And so the first part is looking at, am I a responsible person? And so you're starting with saying, I have accepted responsibility as an educator or a parent. And I have a profound understanding of the importance of my role, that it does make a difference, the example that I'm giving to other people, to people on the team, people in family, people in the community, people in the school. The responsibility requires first a kind of decision, and so, okay. That looks really nice. Thanks. I have accepted full responsibility as an educator. I have a profound understanding of the importance of my role. So what they're talking about there is responsibility requires this first kind of decision of consciously responding for who you are. And it's not so much a question of being responsible for a number of tasks, it's just saying that I'm responsible in this role. The next one is like, am I realizing the responsibility means responding to those who have authority over me? So everybody has someone that they are responsible to, somebody that's in charge, that you're going to be doing what they're asking, and they have authority over you. And the third one, I'm committed to something of value, which I try to share with those for whom I'm responsible. So this commitment is the result of having made the decision that we need to think about what's important to us and strive to protect or defend those values. So the idea is I'm really working towards having the things that I'm going to teach, the examples I'm going to give, that I've thought through. How will this work out? And so the next one is number 4, having made the decision to start an action, I accept the consequence if it doesn't work out well. And a lot of people will, say like, well, I didn't pass the class because it's the school's fault. So you want to be able to say, well, it's what did I do? If I'm working and I'm studying to do as the best that I can, rather than blaming someone else for it didn't work out or it didn't do what I was wanting it to do. Number 5 is I'm spending a certain amount of time trying to foresee the possible results of my decisions before actually deciding. And this is really important when you're looking at helping someone or just thinking through things that you have to face for yourself. The idea is it's easy to say, well, I'm going to decide to do this. What they're saying, to expand that and to say, well, let's imagine, how will that work out if I do this? what will be the consequence of this? What will it be like the next day if I'm engaging in this teaching, in this class, in this behavior? And so that's something that's really helpful for children as well. Is just I'm going to look at, instead of just reacting like stop doing this and do that instead, to look at how will that work out. So the idea, in especially in parenting, 90% of the work is trying to say, how do you want them to act, instead of just saying don't do this and don't do that. And because if you say don't do this, they still don't know what to do. So as an easy example is saying, like, children running around in the house, and you're saying like don't run in the house, well, they still don't know what to do. So you're saying like, walk in the house, run outside. It Simple things like that. You're looking at, I'm having them run outside. And same thing, if their voice, they're really loud, saying like you can be loud outside, quiet in the house, not screaming at each other. And so you're looking at, what are the results, what will happen if I do this. Number 6, I accept the negative consequences of my own mistakes. So if I do something and it doesn't work out, being able to say, I'm sorry, or that didn't work out well. And this really ties in well with the sacrament of reconciliation, and being able to say, I have committed a sin, I have made a mistake, I didn't do it right. So I'm able to admit I did it wrong instead of blaming other people. I can take responsibility. And in a marriage, it's really something that comes up a, a lot, is that, if I do something wrong and my wife gets mad, then I'll say, oh, I'm bad, I'm not good enough, I'm terrible, and I start insulting myself. That's not being responsible, that's being self-critical. And so the idea is to say, if I make a mistake, it's like, oh, I did that wrong, sorry, let me try again, rather than I'm terrible and spend all the time beating yourself up. Because the dynamic that you set up then in a marriage or in a friendship is that, if I go from I made a mistake and now I'm beating myself up, that's calling for the other person to care for you. And it's hard because they're mad about the thing that happened. And so now they're saying, I'm mad at you and you're doing something that's making me want to take care of you. And it's a double bind for someone to say, how can we repair this? So rather than denying it or beating yourself up, that middle place with the virtue is to say, I am sorry, I messed up, let me try again, or let's do that again. That I want to repair it. I said, I did it wrong, and now I'm going to repair it, rather than drop into self criticism. And so the next one is, I usually commit myself to projects after studying them seriously, thinking about possible consequences for myself and for others without depending too much on other people's opinions. What that one's about is looking at, I'm going to think through what's happening and then we're going to do it, rather than, oh, if everyone's doing it, I will follow along. The number 7 is really saying, I'm being responsible. I'm looking at, this is a good thing to do, even if there's only a few people coming with me to do it. And it's worthwhile. And especially with being Christians and Catholics and standing up for what you believe in, you're going to get criticized. People are like, oh, you believe this, and you're this person that's being judgmental, or that means you don't like us. And one of the things you'll notice in society is that people are really critical of what you're doing, rather than saying, here's the right way to do it. So this virtue of being responsible is saying, I'm going to shift to say, here's the right thing to do, and I'm going to do it because it's the right thing. So the next slide would be number 8. Although there is a lot of reasons for being responsible, I understand the main reason should be because I'm responsible to someone else, or I'm responsible before God. And that's something you can always say, like, if am I doing this? If Jesus was right here with me, would I do this? If God was with me while I'm doing this behavior, is this something he'd say, yeah, good job? Or is it be like, oh, don't look at this, Jesus, I'll be right with you. Just a minute. I'm going to go do this thing. And then I'm going to come back. I'll do that good thing after I get run, doing my vice. So you want to really be thinking of that. I'm responsible for God. And that's one of the things that, if you're having children with difficulty with internet use, or they're getting into things that they shouldn't be, one of the really powerful tools is just to say, would you do that if your mom was sitting right there beside you? Or if your dad was sitting right there looking at what you were doing, would you do that? Or we'd be like, no, I would control myself. I would not be saying these bad things because um, I know they're bad. I'm just, saying it's like a fast thing that I would say. I want to come back and remember if my parent was here or I'm responsible for before God, how do I look at that behavior now? Number 9 is when I take part in meetings where decisions are made, I accept the consequences, even if what was decided didn't go with what I wanted. And that's something that's, it happens. And especially in a marriage, when you're looking at if we do it my way or if we do it my spouse's way, we both want it to be a happy, it works out. We're happy together. We're getting along. We made it through this problem. And so we're really looking at how can we make this be something that if I do it my way, I want us to have success. If we do it your way, you want us to have success. And that's one of the ways just to, if I can back up and look at that bigger picture to say, the other people aren't trying to make me miserable. They're just saying they have a good idea. Let's see if it works their way. Just like I would say, hey, I want you guys to cooperate with me if we're doing it the way I thought was a good idea. And so you're really trying to take and give the benefit of the doubt to the other person that it's going to work out okay. Okay, number 10, I'm trying to be responsible for what I radically am. That is, I'm a child of God. And so this means, for example, that I'm going to the sacraments, I'm studying the truths of the faith, I'm looking for adequate spiritual guidance, I'm living my faith in relationship to others, I'm praying, I'm recognizing God as my Father. I'm really trying to keep that in mind that I'm a child of God. How should I act? What kind of things should I be doing in this activity that we're signing up for? And so that's kind of the 10 questions to go through about, just looking at being responsible as a person. How am I doing for that? And if they have, if we get looking at teaching others to be responsible, just quickly to look through those things is that, I tend to recognize that each child's tendency is regard to practicing a virtue. I'm not um, pressuring a child who's already good at something, just to pressure them. And that's where we talked last time about which virtue should I start with. Well, some people are, they have virtues that they're just naturally doing, and I don't have to be pressuring and jumping on them about that or say like, oh, they're already able to do that. And if they're trying to reduce a vice, to pick a specific one that we're trying to change into a more virtuous behavior. So I need to be flexible. I need to be able to look at how is this child doing or how is this person doing in that specific virtue. Okay, giving the child orders so they can learn to obey and be responsible. A lot of that is really good to start when children are really little, and that kind of those preschool years when you're looking at getting them to be able to follow directions so that when they go to school or they're involved in groups with other children that you can say, hey, stop that. And they actually know to stop. They can control themselves. Or come back over here. They will turn around and come back. And so one of the things is just part of that in parenting. They're saying like, well, what can your child handle? I'm going to give them something to do and plan that they're not going to do it well so that I stay calm and to say, okay, let's try it again. You're going to figure it out. And being able to give them the benefit of the doubt that they're going to be able to do that. They're going to be able to do it right, but it takes practice and repetition. And I'm helping them recognize what decisions they are making and accept responsibility. So that's part of the thing in saying like, what's the problem you're trying to solve? And if they're able to tell you, this is what I want to do, they say, okay, what are your options? What could you do? And with each option, how will that work out? I really want to be able to have them think through what do they want to do rather than just, I'll just do this. I'll just get up and I'll study, or I'll just, put all my clothes away first time. Just like, well, okay, that's a good idea. How will that work out? Or I'll put my music where it's supposed to go so I can find it for next time I have class, or I'll put my homework away so I'll find out. Then how will that work out if you put your homework where it's on your desk so you can find it? So thinking through how will this work out in your imagination allows the building of the brain pathway so that then when it comes to the reality, there's a path they can follow, and it raises the odds of success for that. Offering alternatives to the children so they can think about the advantages and disadvantages of each one. I mean, this is not just for children. Adults can look at the same thing. If I wanted to make a decision in spiritual direction, they call it discernment. But I'm doing kind of like, what are my options? And with each option, I'm going to do pro and con of doing it this way, pro and con of choice 2, pro and con of choice 3. And I want to take some time to reflect and meditate on that so that over a couple of weeks, I can look at, well, as I'm looking at the advantages and disadvantages of these different options, it's going to narrow it down from 5 choices to 3 choices to 2 and to 1. The advantage of that is that when you make the decision, you're saying, okay, I'm making this choice, I'm going to be more at peace with it. Where if I just jump to make a decision, automatically the back part of my brain is going to be, no, you should have done the other one. But if you'd have chose that one, the back of your brain would say, oh, you should have done this first one. And so there's this shifting back and forth, whichever one you pick, if you rush, the odds are you will shift and wish you would have done the other one. Where this discernment, thinking it through, teaching the children to look at how will that work out, is really giving me the information that I need so that I can be able to make a decision and stick with it and follow through. And so that's just kind of looking at some of the things to help them, help the children be responsible, to help yourself be responsible. And so just because we have 5 things to go through tonight, any kind of questions or thoughts about this first one and being responsible, and things you want me to clarify a little more, or is that making sense so far?
Good night, Dr. Joe. I
Yes.
would just like to ask a question. You speak about children and running wrong, and the other day at my workplace, a mother came in with this little boy, and he was just screaming and screaming to the top of his voice and pulling his mother close, pulling her down. So I look at her and I said, is something wrong with him? Can I assist? Can I help? Can I do anything? What is the matter? And she was like, leave him, don't speak to him, leave him, don't say anything to him. I said I was only trying to help because the only child was screaming, and then it drew all the customer attention, everybody was looking at her and this little child. And I stand there like I was just lost because I really want to help in whatever way, because had to be something wrong with this child where he was screaming like this and pulling at his mother clothes and pushing, and she didn't want nobody to assist. She didn't want nobody to help. And I did it in just a nice way, thinking I could have helped. But so in a matter like this, how exactly, what assistance can you give? What can you do? Because the mother don't want you to speak to her. She don't want you to speak to the child. So all I could do is just stand there and just whisper prayer on behalf of the mother and the child in my heart. Because something like it was really out of control.
And so that the benefit you're seeing, that kind of behavior is going to lead to the child will grow up, and as he gets bigger, his temper gets bigger, and she's going to have a lot more problems with him as a teenager than if she would help him settle down now. And so that sense of when a parent is refusing that help, it is really difficult, because if we learn from either doing it ourselves or seeing someone else do it. So if she was able to be around other people that could say, hey, here's how we get our children to follow directions, to settle down, to calm down. Because one of the things I would talk about with that is like that raging child is like, oh, how as a parent, you will take a child and potty train them so that you don't have to keep wearing diapers. You will get them out of diapers for your convenience, for the child's convenience, so they can go to the bathroom. Emotional control is the same thing. It has to be taught. You have to teach how to calm down. You have to teach how to wait. You have to teach how to take turns. And so when you're offering that help, you're really doing well. But if the mom's saying, nope, you can't help me, it's hard. Like you're saying, I can pray. If there's someone else that's able to help them see, we're not attacking you, we're trying to help. This can help the child calm down. getting other people involved might help. There's a 5-question contracting thing that would just maybe help you to see if you're working harder than the other person is working. So the first question, and this is separate from the notes that I sent, so it's I don't have a handout for this, but the first question you're asking is, you're asking the person, this mom, is there a problem? And if she says, yes, there's a problem, now we can move to the next question. Do you want to solve the problem? And if she says yes, now we can go to, do you want some ideas that are easy to do? And if she says yes, you can give her easy ideas, like rocking, walking them around, giving them something else to play with. But if they say no anywhere on that, then I have to stop, because I'm not the parent. And I mean, if the child's hurting themselves or someone else, then I'm going to, help keep the person from hurting or getting hurt or destroying the room. But I really have to say, I can't work harder than they are. So if they say, yes, it's a problem. Yes, I want to solve it. Yes, I'm willing to do easy things. The fourth question is, are you willing to do hard things? Things like I might have to actually get up and come over and, settle the child down, or I might have to have someone else help me. And if they'll say yes, then we can help. If they say no, then I will back up and say, well, I'm ready to help when you want me. And then the fifth question is, are you willing to do hard things my way or someone else's way? So that mom would be able to say, I'm doing hard things someone else's way. I'm going to let you help. And once you get yes on all 5, then behaviors change. But if they stop and they say no anywhere in those 5 questions, they stop, and then I have to just wait. And I don't know if you found that in your prayer groups, but we have the same thing when we're praying with people here, that people will say, yeah, I want this. Jesus, help me with this. And then Jesus is there and they say, like, what's happening? Nothing. He's just standing there watching, because you won't let go of the problem. You're not giving it to him. You're just saying, help, help, help. But you won't give him the problem that you want him to help you with. And so that's, even Jesus will wait for us to say, okay, I will surrender this to you. Then he can act. But he really does respect our free will. So that's a really long answer for your question. But the short answer is, we have to just see if we can help the mom see that there is another way, that the child can calm down, and it isn't that hard. But a lot of times we'll see people with that difficulty. In one part of them, they're feeling so bad or guilty or embarrassed, they don't want to help. They feel like everyone's criticizing them. And so they're so afraid they won't ask for help. So that is difficult for sure. If you can, I mean, say like, hey, I can help. I'll carry on. I'll take it. I mean, like we have people in the church, like if they have a baby crying in the pew, that, my wife or I can pick them up and rock them just to give the mom a break. It's like, and the baby calms down. But if the mom won't let you do that, it's really tough for sure. How's that? Does that help?
Yes, please. Thanks.
Okay. So the next virtue we're going through is respect for others. And this is, do I have respect for others? People who have respect for others act or refrain from acting so as to not harm, and indeed to benefit themselves and others in line with their rights, statutes, and circumstances. So do I respect others is looking at that. How am I taking care of them? So again, we're giving people the benefit of the doubt, like they have the desire to do it right. They have the desire for respecting or being respected. And so this first one, I usually manage to obtain an atmosphere of understanding and acceptance in the family or in the class, is based on a number of different things. For example, listening to others attentively, avoiding unfounded criticism, taking care of your own tone of voice and gestures so that they don't express scorn or contempt, like I've got body language that's saying, oh, you're so dumb, that's a bad idea. I'm trying to be respectful and say, I want to be curious. How does that look for you? And I recognize everyone can improve. That's another piece where I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt. I mean, they can make posters and write books about, everybody has that front part of their brain that's wanting to be loving and helpful and smart, is wanting to be calm, wanting to get along. And the contrary would be to put a label on the person to say like, oh, this is, it's like if a baby's learning to walk and they fall down and you say, oh, you look like you're just going to be one of those people that crawls around. You're not going to be one of the walkers that gets to walk in the world. You don't do that. You're saying like, oh, they'll try, they'll get it, they'll be able to walk. And it takes 12 months from when they're born to being able to walk, usually. And so you're really trying to say, I'm recognizing, this person's wanting to improve. They want to get better. They want to do it right. And so that's going to help me to be, more curious about how do they see it? What do they want to change? And we want to keep what's working well and change and improve the things that need to be changed. It's quite clear to me, number three, that things do not have rights, but are at our service, man's service. So that the idea of we're looking at things and taking good care of them. So I'm not allowing some youngsters to use a machine that they would damage. I'm not allowing them to do things that they're going to break it unless they've had training for, how to use that tool or how to use that appliance. And so for good news is saying usually by third grade, a child is smart enough to run the washing machine. So by third grade, they can wash their own laundry. And it's good. I'm a fan of giving chores to kids. So in my May newsletters that I'm writing for the school here, I'm really talking about, hey, here's some chores we could do. And here's the age they can do it. And let's start giving them more so that they can practice. Kids want to be big. They want to learn how to do things. So we're teaching them how to do things like do the laundry or start to prepare some of the simple meals or helping around the house. And it's a way of helping them learn things rather than just I'm not going to let you do it. And I hear that a lot from parents that, oh, it's easier if I just do it myself. And so when we're doing that, yes, I can share the newsletter with the chores. I'll send that. So when you're looking at having that the children want to be trained, they want to learn how to do it, they want to be big, and that's something that really can get them. It's like up through second grade, it's like it's a game, it's a race, we can do it together, and that gets it where it's together, we're doing this and it's fun, so we can be joking around. And then it's would be easier if I just did it myself, but we want them to learn to be responsible, to be respecting, and to take turns. And so it's going to be slow for a while until they learn, and then they can do it and be respectful and not be damaging things in the house. Okay. Number four, normally I act with the clear idea of wanting to help others. And like you're saying, with the lady coming in, the child, she needs help with calming the baby down, but sometimes your own anxiety gets in the way, like, oh no, I got to handle it myself. And that makes it really difficult because they, have more worries, they're more anxious than it gets in the way. So a lot of the work then is saying, I can be respectful, I can help you calm down. And maybe a place to do that is, the acronym PLACE, PLACE. So being playful, people want to come close to you if you're playful. If you're loving, people want to be loved. They're going to come for that. Then the ACE is standing for acceptance, like, oh, I'm going to be curious. How do you see it? How is it for you? Is this okay? Is this a problem? And I'm going to help unpack that for them to say, like, yeah, I can see this is really difficult when you have a child screaming in the room. And then you're going to go to empathy. And empathy is like, yeah, this is really stressful. I know when my kids were little, that was really hard. And just that I get that it's hard for them. And I've been through that. Two things happen. They calm down and I become safe. Then I can say, would you like some help? Would you like to try this? Would you like to try, and I give them an idea. Or I can do that with them, like we say, pick up the child in the pew in front of us and start rocking them to calm them down. That's something that's really, you're kind of walking into, I have to calm the mom down first, then I can start helping and taking care of the child. And that's number four. I have a clear idea of wanting to help. but I'm not doing something to try to fix or to pry or to get information or to get some things to gossip about. And a lot of times, if I come in and I'm trying to help, especially in a family, I'm trying to help too fast, the other person just gets mad. It's not that I'm doing it wrong. It's just I didn't do that empathy first about, oh, this is a difficult thing. Here's some ideas. And I just go and do this, and I'm telling them to do something. So they're taking it as I'm rejecting them, I'm judging them, I'm blaming them. And that's where I get anger instead of them accepting that I'm wanting to help, I'm being respectful. Number 5 is I try not to do things which I think would harm them. So that's, it's kind of common sense of saying like, hey, I don't want to do things that make you in more pain. Now it's interesting looking at like the medical profession where they're saying like, oh, you have a cancer or you have an injury. We're going to go in and cut you and take that cancer out. So it's like, I'm doing some cutting, but it's not to harm you, it's to make you not have cancer. So I'm being really bad to the cancer. I'm not saying, oh, cancer, let's make it grow bigger. I want to help reduce the cancer. And so that's the kind of thing that we're looking at is I'm not doing harm. I can see this is going to be helpful, even if it's hard. Like if somebody has an addiction, like they're drinking and they're saying like, oh, I want to help you by saying, no, we are not having alcohol here. And they might think, you're being so mean, you're being controlling. And you're like, no, it's for the good of being sober. And so that idea is I'm not doing something to harm you. There's going to be a good that's going to come out of this. And trying to see that's the perspective that I'm going to use to stay calm. So if the other person gets upset, then I'm helping to calm them down from seeing it as control or restriction or something that's criticizing them to say, no, this is going to be helpful. Look how nice it would be. Number 6 is understanding that different people should be treated differently and shown respect in different ways. And this is really something where we're seeing at the school where we have some people that are really, they were in the military, they were on the police force, they're just really like they are direct and to the point and just do this, it'll be okay. And you can talk to them really direct and matter of fact, like get this done by this date. And those people respond really well, and that's respectful. And then there's some other people that are teaching the preschool or the younger kids that are really more, nurturing and feeling. And if you go in and say like, hey, I want to talk to them like, how is this? How is your stress level? Let's talk at what's working well. Do you need some help? And then I can, it's like I have to do a whole bunch of more connecting and calming, and then I can ask about deadlines. And so it's just that's what they mean treating people differently because some people they need to be talked to black and white and direct and just do it this way. And other people are more like sensitive, and you're going to say, I'm going to really let you know I'm safe. I'm hearing you. I understand this is a lot of difficult things to do. We can get them done. Let's take them in a sequence, and so then I'm going to be more maybe supportive to someone that's more sensitive. And so number 7, before acting, to try to help somebody, I always try to ensure I'm well informed about the situation. Now, this is really important if you're dealing with, someone else to say, I can talk like right now I had a report, an evaluation that I did for a 5th grade child, and his parents are divorced. And it's interesting to look at the evaluations of the parents describing the child in their respective homes. And you see like mom describes the child, oh, the kid is so sensitive, he's anxious, he's depressed, he's nervous, he's really having a lot of problems, he needs some counseling. And the dad of the same child is saying like, oh, this child has no problems, he needs no help, he is fine, he does what I say. And so the idea is you have 2 different people describing the same child in night and day different. And so then my job is to say, okay, what's he really like? And so I'm doing some testing at the school. We're having him fill out some things, and I'm watching him in the classroom to say, like, okay, well, he's really active, but he's a really smart student, but he's really active. He can't stay in his seat. So because he's smart, he'll start something, but then he gets distracted. And so he's not got quite the anxiety that mom describes, but he's got more than what dad was describing. So that's where your idea of I really need to know both sides of the story before I want to go help somebody. Because if I jump in and say, well, mom's right, let's do it mom's way, then dad's going to be really mad. And if I just say, well, dad's right, let's do it this way, then mom's going to be really mad. So I really need to see how is this person doing? What all's going on in their life? So that's an example of I need to be well informed about both sides of the situation and not just jump right in being helpful too soon. Number 8 is I treat everyone with the respect they deserve. And so again, we're looking at we're children of God. And so even if somebody's like difficult to be around, they're just kind of speaking things without filtering, they're just yelling and they think they're talking, is to be able to say, okay, they're still a child of God. And so this we can pull, from Mother Teresa about saying she used the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 25, where Jesus is saying in that final judgment scene, whatever you did to the least of these, you did to me. Because it's easy to be good to people that you like. It's hard to be good to people that are way different than you. And so the idea is I have to slow down, bring to mind the idea this is a child of God. And that's what Mother Teresa said. Jesus is hiding in that really crabby person. Jesus is hiding in that really difficult person to say, will you be nice to me? Even here. So just at least if I can bring that up, it gives me a little more tolerance. I still might have a difficult time, but it's going to give me a little more tolerance if I can bring that idea to mind that there's a child of God here. Number 9 is when I'm talking to others, I try to avoid general judgments about people or criticisms or prejudice and that kind of thing. So we're really trying to say, I want to notice signs of disrespect in the conversation. I want to try to settle down and to be able to say, again, we're going back to that curiosity. How does this person see the thing that they're dealing with? How do they see this ministry? How do they see this classroom? How do they see this sports program? To be able to say, again, everybody has that idea of I'm good, I'm helpful. It's the other person that's bad. And so we want to give them the benefit of the doubt, saying they think they're good. Let's find out how they see the situation. That's going to reduce my prejudice, my judgment. But sometimes you're like saying, like we were talking with like somebody who's alcoholic or somebody who has an addiction, to say, they're like, oh my gosh, we got to do this. And they might be really just kind of, you know, ranting at you or being really angry or just wanting their way, or, they come in and they'll act like they want help and then they'll steal from you. And so then being able to say, well, based on the behavior that you're showing, I'm going to need to not have you in my house because you take things when I'm gone to work. So you can't stay at my house, but I'll help you find a place to stay so you can be treated with respect. You're just not staying in my house because last time you did, you stole things, or you were over at this other person's house and you stole things. So we want to be helpful, but we still need to be wise and keeping that safety. Number 10 is I'm thinking about how best to serve each person, at the same time recognizing there's no magic formula that's right for everybody. And so the idea is I can't have like a template of I'm doing this for everybody and then everyone will be happy. If that would work, we would have had world peace long ago. So the idea of some people, like we say, are really direct and they want things black and white and ordered, and some folks are more chaotic and they want more, emotional things going. Or they're going to take a long time to get around to it. Some people say, yeah, I'll get around to it. And I knew one, there was a guy here in town that bought a lawnmower and he brought the box home and put it on his porch. And his wife said, so you're going to put that lawnmower together and mow the lawn? He's like, I'll get to it. She said, it's been a year and a half. He has not opened that box yet. It's been a year and a half on our porch. And so then 3 months later, he puts it together. And it was like in less than 2 years, he's like, see, I told you I'd get it put together. But it took him a year and 9 months to open a box and put together a lawnmower. So, it's just like different people are doing things different ways. So that's something to pay attention to. Okay. So that's the part there about respecting others. And any thoughts or questions, clarification about that piece of it? Okay, so the next one we're going to is sincerity. And so we'll have to go to that next slide there. And just in being sincere, am I sincere with myself? So sincere people make full disclosures where appropriate to the right person at the right time. If there's anything they have done or seen or thought or felt with regard to their own or another situation. So sincere is I'm going to say, I'm saying what I mean what I say. And I need to tell people if, hey, that's not working right. we're going to have to, be able to say things, even if it's not the most popular thing. And for parenting and this kind of thing, we're really trying to say, I want to distinguish between fact and feeling. So I'm trying to create an open atmosphere of communication and trust the family, the classroom, so that the children get used to my being sincere. So I'm just like we're talking about practicing any particular virtue, you need that atmosphere of virtue. The virtue are interrelated, and I'm going to practice it more in a natural way. And so if it helps to think of it like for parenting, is to say at first, we're doing the prayers, we're doing this behavior, we're doing this skill, and we're practicing it because they need to physically build the brain pathway to be able to do it. And then we can let them kind of develop it into their own style. So it's not, but at first they need to learn it and then they can modify it. And so that's something, especially in the classroom, like they're telling teachers, like you start really more strict and then you can loosen up and be more comfortable. But if you start loose and comfortable, then when you're trying to get them to show up and do things and change between classes, it's really difficult later to apply structure if they had a lot of freedom and just could do whatever they, be more free about what they were doing at the beginning of the year. Okay. Number two, I'm conscious of my own real situation, my qualities, capacities, and self-knowledge. It's like I know what's important. And if I don't know what's important and I don't know my skills and abilities, I'm not going to be able to help the children do the same. And so the children also need to know what their skills and abilities are. We're going to be able to say, what kind of things are they good at? And so some of that, they have a program here. I don't know if you have it in your diocese, but it was called the Called and Gifted program. And it was a weekend retreat for adults where they kind of went through and they asked you, what kind of things do you think you're good at? What kind of ministries would you want to be involved in? Where would you want to help? And people would list that. And then they go through the retreat and they start talking about, well, what have other people said that you're good at? What have other people said, like they complimented you about how you have done this work? And then they kind of put that together to say, look, we're going to rate and rank order things to say, you might think you're really good at singing, but other people are saying, well, not so much. You're better with the instruments, or you're better with accounting, or, organization and budgeting. And so even though you think you really want to do this because it's fun, other people are saying your skills are more in this organization. And in that kind of thing, they have this discernment. And so the idea is you go through this retreat, and at the end of it, you have the feedback from one of the counselors that says, well, based on what you've completed and the different things people are giving you feedback on, these are the skills and talents that you have, and these are what you're called to do, so that you're really kind of working more in a ministry that lines up with what your skills are. And it's like with my skills, I'm comfortable talking to people, and my wife's skills are more in the background. And so she's more behind the scenes, structure, organized details, and financing. So she's done a lot of volunteering in different treasury positions on committees. And keeping track of data is really something she's good at. Where I'm more, well, it's good enough. Big picture is fine. The details, other people will work out. And so, it's just, if you want a lot of details, I'm not a really good person to say, yeah, let's get all those details from Dr. Joe. It'd be like, no, it's more, we'll have his wife do it. And then he'll be more, doing presentations or leading a group or coordinating multiple groups to be able to work together, that administrative kind of thing. So knowing your own strengths is good. And then watching for that in the children in the classrooms or in the ministry you're doing, is to say, what kind of things are they good at? There's some kids that are more leaders, some kids that are more following, some kids that will be off reading a book by a tree during recess, and other kids are out kicking a soccer ball around. So you're kind of watching what's their abilities, what's their skills, which kids do they hang around with, or do they hang around with just, one person or by themselves? That's a really good thing of how I can be sincere, how I can help them get into something that works well. Understanding the most important thing is to recognize that I'm a child of God and to strive to improve according to an objective notion of what is good. And so some people recognize the real situation only partially. For example, being only partially aware of, their whims and caprices, like, I like to do this, or I like to have piles of things, so that might be, I'm organized, like we talked about last time, with there is a child that's like, oh, from their point of view, they're organized, but from someone else's point of view in the house is like, there's papers all over the room. There's like a mess in here. How can you find anything? And so they might be only partially aware of their abilities. So in that case, I'm going to be helping them to um, work on little things, and it's little steps towards the goal that's going to make a difference, rather than saying, now we're going to be organized and really be, have things, in a system here, where they might fight that like crazy. So you really have to say we're doing little changes and working towards the goal, rather than we're just going to change everything at once. Number 4, normally I discuss my personal experiences with the next person. So the idea is that you're talking to someone who's safe, that kind of like, I'm talking about things, I'm getting advice, I'm giving advice, and I'm able to share those things with another person. The idea is, with my spouse or my friends or some other companion at work, they're going to give me good feedback. And it's really helpful to think of it as they're giving me feedback rather than they're criticizing me, they're attacking me, they're putting me down. I want to find somebody that's safe. And when I share things, they can say, okay, that part works, adjust this a little bit. And then sharing it at the right time. So it's like, can I share it at a time when other people have time to listen, or the prudence of, like, I'm not blurting it out in the middle of a meeting. I'm going to be saying, let's talk about that on the side after the meeting. Let's get some feedback over there. One of the things that they had here in our schools, because they had, when the internet was really getting popular, they had a lot of kids getting on the internet and forcing and forming these little chat groups. And so what they found is that the kids in the chat groups were saying things to other kids in these chat rooms that they would never say in person. They would be like, oh, I'd never say that in public in front of people, but on the line on my computer, man, I'm saying these really bad things. And so the idea there was, they would say, like, okay, what you're typing there, one option is to say, would you type that if your mom or dad was sitting right beside you looking at what you're typing? And the other part was saying, would you say that if you were using a microphone standing in front of the whole school, would you say that remark? Just to give them the idea of that, being respectful, being sincere, saying, I'm only going to say the stuff that's real and true, not blasting out criticisms that way. And it got to the point that they had, for some kids started, the parents would read the emails, and then the parents started fighting. And so they had a talk with, they actually had because it was happening in the public schools way worse than it was happening at our school. They actually had the city said, okay, the police will now enforce, if you say something online, we'll take that as a threat, like you did it to the person, and you can get arrested for doing damaging things on internet just through those social media and chat things. So they're enforcing that like you did it in person, to try to get people to think about, what are you doing before you hit send on the internet there. Okay. When you share information about ideas and feelings, I do this to help others or to look for help for my own improvement. And that's, again, we're talking that same theme of, I want to be talking direct. I want to get some help. I want to get some feedback. And the idea of being sincere, not sarcastic, not saying things that, oh yeah, you should go do this, just to say, oh, they're going to mess up if they do that. Or, oh, I was joking, you shouldn't have done that. We want to be more sincere in the help that we're giving people. And I want to share or just talk about what I've seen and heard with prudence and charitably. I'm not going to be yelling at you, or, one of the things we're dealing with in some of the groups here, where we have some people that just kind of say things and they don't filter it. And to get them to say, rather than do that, why don't you come talk to one of us or some of these other safe people, and we'll kind of help you shift how you're saying that, so people don't think you're screaming at them, because they're like, I'm just talking. But the other people think you're really being criticizing and, really harsh. So we want to help you be able to say that. And that's being charitable, to help them see, here's how a better way to say that. And number 8, based on my sincerity and trust and naturalness, I'm trying to be more helpful, more friendly, more courteous in what I'm doing there. Again, trying to keep out of sarcasm, or double standards or double meanings in words and that kind of thing. Number 9 is I really want to be sure that I'm giving a good example. I'm not lying. I'm not covering up the truth, trying to mislead other people. And one of the things about being sincere is to say, well, if I made a mistake, to say, yeah, I made a mistake. That's part of, like, we're tying it back into being responsible. But to say, hey, I made a mistake. That didn't work out like I wanted. Or, this is a bad thing. I shouldn't have done that. To be able to, I'm not covering it up. I'm not lying and say, yes, I did. I did. If I didn't do something, to say, well, yeah, I did. Say, well, sorry, I didn't make it. I wasn't able to help. So I'm not trying to mislead people so I look better. 10, I'm conscious of the times when I cannot or should not reveal some truth. Because the idea is like, well, it's true, it's right, but is it something that needs to be shared around? And that's, if you know somebody's weaknesses or somebody's faults, is that something I need to blast out to everybody? And I know in small towns, that was something that's really a problem. In some of the smaller towns in our area, is to say, well, if you're a teacher, you're a public person. And if you're a single teacher and you go on a date, everybody knows what you did and where you went and what time you got home. And, just like everybody's watching because that's the excitement in town, just kind of say, what have you been doing? And gossip can get going. So it's like, even if I know something, I'm not got to share all the truth everywhere I go all the time. So it's like, it's okay to keep quiet about that. If, the teacher went on a date and they went for dinner and, they had a glass of wine, it's okay. You don't have to tell everybody everything that happened. Okay. So that's going through that part. Any thoughts, feedback, questions about sincerity? I think a lot of these you can look at them and say, like, well, a lot of it is really common sense and just having good social skills. And that's leading to virtue for sure. Okay. Comments or questions? I can see about tracking down because there's somebody put in the chat about liking to have a program in your diocese down there. One of the things we can look at with that is they've got a ministry in one of the churches here in town that they actually would do trainings. And I could see about if they have some materials that I can get access to forward down to you folks to look over, just to see, if you got time to set up another retreat. That'd be great, because it really does help line up ministries and people that volunteer. And it's really kind of for the benefit of matching the volunteers with the ministry that they're volunteering for. Okay, so now we're looking at modesty is the next one. So we have modest people recognize the value of their own privacy and request that of others. They protect their privacy from the gaze of others, and they reject anything that might encroach upon and relax this practice only the circumstances which can be beneficial for themselves or others. And so one of the things is just different that I need to mention in this book, the way they're using modesty is really talking about when they say intimate self. Intimacy refers to that inner life of the person, my thoughts, my feelings, my body sensations, kind of what's going on inside of me and what I share about that. Because the idea of like we're body and spirit, we have a mind, body, and spirit, and they work together as a whole person. And so just to keep that in mind as we're talking about intimacy or my intimate self, they're referring to the inside thoughts and feelings that you have. Okay, so I appreciate what relates to my intimate self, my soul, my parts of my body, my feelings, my thoughts, that there's a me inside here that I'm just saying, I want to make proper use of that. I want to know, that, this is that being a child of God, I have all these different aspects and I want to make use of them. And so that's a big part of behind when I was talking at the beginning about, you have these two reactions just because on a biology level, on our body level, there's a lot of things going on. And then on top of that, you have the emotional level, and there's rules about how your emotions work and the stages they go through, the path they want to follow. And then on top of that, you have the spiritual, the temptation and your virtue. And so that there's three different layers going on inside a person. And just the more I can step back and reflect on that, and really it's just sitting back and kind of observing what's going on, that self-awareness, self-reflective capacity is the technical term for it. I want to be able to watch that and say, okay, there's a me inside here. What are the things I can use? And we really want to say that inside everybody, when they say the Spirit of God is within you or the kingdom of heaven is within you, inside everybody, down in our core, is that calm. And that's where that tiny whispering sound, where God's talking to us, and to say, do I know that place? Do I go deep into my heart, into my inner room that Jesus talked about? And then I'm praying from there in that place of connection and communion with Jesus. Number two, I understand that sometimes I should keep things to do with my intimacy, myself, private, and sometimes I should share them with others. When I share these things, it's because I'm looking for help or through, I want them to be able to help me or I want to help them. And so one of the things when I'm working with like high school or college kids and they're looking at relationships, like what do you say? What do you not say? There's three stages that would be really kind of a good test to see if this is a good person to share with or not. The first one is if like you go to the grocery store and what do you talk about with the person that's checking out the groceries? Just like, hey, nice weather, having a barbecue this weekend. Ooh, it sure is hot out there. But I'm just saying, I share a topic. Do they talk about the same topic? And if I shift to a second topic, do they follow and shift to that second topic with me? If they do, okay, that's that level one of friendship, of safety. I can talk about different topics, kind of external things to me. Then the next level is like where a friend, somebody you could spend the weekend with or go on a trip with. And that's the kind of things where I say, here's the things that I like, and here's the things I don't like. So it's not just superficial things, it's looking at, I'm sharing a little more. So I say what I like or don't like. So an example for that for me would be chocolate and say chocolate, stuff I like about chocolate, stuff I don't like about chocolate. And so I like certain kinds of, like candy bars or chocolate cake. But there's other chocolate, like chocolate milk, chocolate ice cream, fudge, that it's too sweet and it gives me a headache. So it's just like, okay, so that's kind of that sense of I told you what I like about chocolate and don't like about chocolate. So then on my birthday, you're saying like, okay, hey, it's your birthday. Here, we got you some chocolate pudding. I'm like, oh, that's in that too sweet category. Thanks, but you weren't listening. I'm bumping you back to level one. And so the idea of, safe to share if people are listening, they say like, it's your birthday and here's some chocolate cake. I'm like, oh, okay. So then you were listening. That's that second level of friendship. I can share a little more. The third level is then not only do they know what you like and don't like, but they know why you like it and why you don't like it. And so then that they're listening at that level is really the safe person they're talking about here for number two, that I can share it with them and it'll be safe. So the idea is I'm really looking for, like, if I'm talking to a couple and the wife is saying like, well, those movies, they have those, scenes with, nakedness or underwear. I don't like that because, and then she's saying, why? Because when I was a child, I was abused. And so when I see somebody there like that, it reminds me of that abuse. So that's why I can't watch those kind of movies with you. And then you talk to the guy and he's like, oh, no, this is fine. They just have underwear. There's no naked, there's no sex. It's okay. Let's watch it. Saying like, danger, don't, it's not a safe relationship. Bump him back up to level two. He's not listening. Or if he's somebody saying like, oh, because you're sensitive about that, now I know why, we won't watch those kind of movies with you. We'll let you have we'll watch something else that doesn't have that. So then from there, we're saying now that person's safe. That's somebody, they get what's going on, they get why it's that way. And then I can share things with them safely. And so that's what we're looking at for that second one, as I'm giving them information, they're giving me information, and we can help each other. Number three is I'm looking for after the intimate aspects of my life in order to make good use of what God has given me to act for the glory of God. I can be alone by myself in silence without doing anything. In fact, I actually look forward to these moments, and frequently I'm trying to have some silent time, some quiet time. And like I said earlier, that's really where you're looking at that quiet, that peace is inside us. That's really deep in our heart. So we're looking at getting to that place and spending time there talking to the Lord. I try to find out what other people really need before talking, sharing something intimate. And then I recognize a need. I share intimate self without worrying about the other person is thinking of me. And so one of the things that I found that we have some people we're interacting with that, they'll tell you half of the information and then you start to give them help. And then they tell you the other half. It's like, oh, that isn't the help that you needed. We got to shift it and do something else. So with that particular person, I've learned to say, well, I want to ask, what else is there that I need to know about? What else is going on in this picture? And so then I can share something that's going to actually be helpful and meet the thing that they're looking for. Okay, so I share matters related to my intimate self with someone who I can confide in. They're safe, that level 3 of safety, like we talked about. They can help my struggle to improve. Spiritual direction is another good place for that. I try to allocate space in my home or at school so each child can exercise their right to this intimacy. And, sometimes just having that quiet time. I know one of the junior high classes here, the teacher turns on some Gregorian chant, they turn the light down, they light a candle. And so they give the children, a few minutes at the morning in the beginning of each school day to really kind of have that time for intimacy with God, to have that time of reflection and prayer. Number 8 is I usually dress according to elemental rules of modesty. And that's where we're not going to follow what the media is saying because they're really pushing you to be an object and really to be, coming across as an object. So people will be lusting after you. And that was something that, some of the kids have difficulty with is like they'll dress in a certain way that gets them attention, but then they're like, oh, hey, that isn't what I wanted. Get out of here. And then the person's upset that, hey, well, why'd you dress like that for? Because I thought you were wanting me to come over. And so that mixed message of I want the attention, but I didn't want, sexual encounters kind of thing. So having the modesty and some of it could be like out of fear, like, well, I'm afraid that if I don't dress like that, you won't like me. And so then you're looking at that virtue of saying, like, I'm a child of God. I do have value. I don't have to dress a certain way to provoke people to be paying attention to me. And so that comes back to like, I'm good, I'm helpful, I'm caring, something true and positive about yourself so that then I can be myself and say, yeah, they're wanting to be with me because I'm this good person. And I had an extreme example of that with somebody that was, where they would go down to the college campus and they would sit on the bench by the river and they would make up stories like, oh, I'm a professor here and I teach this class. And, and people would be like, oh, yeah, that's really nice. And then he would come home, he'd be all lonely because he said, they don't like me. They like the lies that I told. That's not who I really am. And so he still, he was trying to get friendship and attention, but it wasn't connected to who he was. And so that was just, that sense of I need to be more sincere and more honest about what I'm doing, being responsible, and then modesty is a part of that. I try to be careful about what language I use in order not to be vulgar or crude, even more so in regards to language that can offend God. And so, some people are just tossing out swear words and curses and things. Some folks, it's kind of cultural. I had a teacher who was from Sicily in Italy, and she's like, "Oh, folks from Italy, man, they were upset. They were throwing curses. May your liver dry up. May your eyes dry out. May your tongue shrivel up." And they were just calling curses out on people, and being able to pray for them and work with them to say, like, "Hey, that's not going to be helpful," because it was driving the staff away that were trying to work with this person. And so having prayed with them and worked with them to kind of see God's loving them, they're a child of God, and really kind of incorporate that into you're a loved child of God, they were able to shift. And then they were able to say, bless you and help you. And then they shifted to saying blessings, but it's just something that had to be taught because that was just the natural thing that came from their culture. From where that lady was from in Sicily. Number 10, if I have strong passions, I can control them with my will. And that's something that's really been lost over the last 200-300 years in culture worldwide, is that sense of people have shifted around and putting emotion first. Like, I want to be having this happiness. I want to be having, fun. I'm trying to get pleasure rather than saying, I'm doing what's right, even if it's difficult. So I want to really be able to say, if I have a passion, what's a safe way to express this? If it's healthy and safe, I can express it. If it's not healthy, then I'm going to have to start cutting back and denying that and stopping that so that I can be in a place where I'm able to live and I'm living towards, going towards God, going toward heaven, like we talked about last time. What's my long-term goal? Where am I headed? And then life will line up and my feelings and emotions line up after that. Then I will have peace, even if I'm dealing with a difficult situation. But if I try to put the emotion first and saying, I'm doing just what's fun for me, or I'm letting my passion go just wild wherever it goes, then it leads to problems. It's good short term, but it leads to problems long term. So we really want to help be choosing the right way to go, choosing this virtuous path, so that then peace will follow. Okay. Thoughts there? Because I know we're running on time, and I think we have one more to go through. Moderation. So moderation is people who are moderate, distinguish between what's reasonable and what's self-indulgent. They make a reasonable use of their senses, their time, their money, their effort, and so on, in accordance with the true and upright principles. And so what we're looking at here is being conscious of the fact that I should put all that I own, my time, possession, effort, money, my senses, to their best use to help others, to serve God, and to try to bring that back online. So things you can ask yourself is like, if I don't get this item, will there be any negative thing that happens to me? If I, like say I want to go buy something, I want to go get some things, do some activity, will there be any negative thing that happens if I don't do it? Second question you could ask is, could the purchase I'm about to make be considered by somebody else who knows me to be an injustice toward others? Like I'm overdoing and overindulging myself. Number three is, why am I really making this purchase? What's going on? Because if I'm, if you watch advertisements, you get this, this desire to go buy things. You want, and if I get away from that advertising, then I won't be so driven to get it. And then by living in this way, number four is, do I always end up creating a new need? So if I go and get this thing this time, is that going to just say, well, the next thing that comes up? And pretty easy to say with people getting hooked into technologies, like I got to have the new phone that comes out, or the new computer that comes out, or the new, appliance, the new attachment, the new app, because it's the new thing. I really want to be just jumping in to get that because it's new and exciting. And I do have a reaction. It's kind of like if I get some dessert, it's like that first bite is delicious. And the research is showing that you only taste the first 4 bites. After that, it's just calories. And so if I can slow down and really enjoy just a few bites of this treat, I get to have all the happiness without, risking diabetes or health issues and that kind of thing. Okay, so number 2, can I firmly say that I have not set up pleasure as the main goal of my life? It's just like, oh, baby, that's a big one. Because it's so natural just to say people want to have fun. They want to do what's right. This is easier. This is faster. This is better. But am I doing it just to say I want to have pleasure as my main goal? And if I don't get my way, I have a big meltdown. And that's really true with kids. They're really just saying, hey, they have a tough time with no, with wait, with take a turn. And so we're really trying to see it's okay. We can take turns. We can share. When I distribute my time, spend my money, make an effort, I distinguish between what's a whim and what's reasonable. And again, that's why we're asking those 4 questions about, do I need this? What will happen to me if I don't get this? Is it just because I want it right now? One of the tools that we used with our kids when they were small is the babysitter couldn't have children. And so when she took our kids to the store during her shopping, she'd buy them a treat. She'd buy them something, a snack, a goodie, a toy. And so then when we went to the store on the weekend, they're like, I want this, I want that. They were just grabbing stuff off the shelves. We're like, no, we are getting what's on the list. And if it's not on the list, we're not buying it this trip. If you want that, put it on the list when we get home for next week. And it was beautiful because that way it gets that sense of, it's an impulse in the store. I see it. I want it. I got to have it right now, Mom. But if I have to go home and remember, like, oh, yeah, I really wanted that. But now it's like, I got toys to play with. I'm fine. Very rare that they put it on the list. And so that was really a nice way to delay gratification. They calmed down. They weren't doing all this impulse demanding things. They calmed down. They were better behaved in the store. So that's, again, being conscious of the power advertising has over people. I mean, they're in the business of getting you to buy things. They're trying to stir up an emotion to make you purchase, whether you need it or not. They just want to sell some things to you. And so being able to say, stepping back from that, letting yourself calm down, think about, or like we talked about earlier today, the pros and cons of getting this, the pros and cons of getting that, the pros and cons of not getting it. And taking time to look at it, that's spiritual direction, discernment. I'm going to make a choice I'll be at peace with, and it's going to be reasonable, where I don't have to have the fanciest. I don't have to be living the worst. I'm going to get something more in that middle, moderate range. When I eat or spend time on a hobby, I want to try to finish wanting a little bit more. So I don't want to take it all the way to the end. I want to be able to say, yeah, this is good. I'll do a little bit more next time. So I'll want to come back to it. That's really true with children. Today, we aren't going all the way to the end. We rode everything in the park. We're going to say we'll go to some of them, and then it's time to go. So we wanting to go back. I'm convinced that what I spend cannot be interpreted as a lack of justice. We talked about that a little bit. So if somebody knows me well, are they going to say, hey, that was really unfair? You're really stacking it up, getting something for yourself, rather than you're doing stuff to help others, or that's a more reasonable amount. And again, we'd go back to, that having safe friends that you can discuss things with, to say, hey, do I really need, a new boat, or do I really need fancier tires on my car? Something that way. I look after my own possessions, common property, in order to ensure that they're well used. So I'm not using things and breaking them, because I know there were some wealthy families here that, they were giving the kids $100 a week allowance, and they had these big dogs, and the dogs would run around the house and they'd jump up and they'd knock the computer over and break it. And there's a $3,000 computer broken. They we'll just go buy a new one, because they had money. So it didn't really matter, didn't value anything to them. So they weren't taking care of their things. They were breaking things. So it doesn't matter, we'll buy a new one. Where folks that aren't in that range don't have that problem, to be able to say, I want to take care of this. And so with the idea for, with the Boy Scouts and camping, to say, like, I have camping gear that I've used for over 20 years, because I clean it and take care of it, I can use it again. It lasts a long time. Where some of the kids have gone on campouts and they're wrestling around and they stick a leg through the wall of the tent and it rips a big hole in it. So it's just like they're not taking care of their property. So you really want to help teach them, take care of it so someone else can use it, clean it because someone else might use it next trip. Put things away so you can find them and use them next time. Number 8, I find a harmonious way for spending my time in the family, work, friends, duties as a citizen, child of God, without exaggeration, without falling short. So that's really where we're looking at bigger picture, spacing myself out. So it's a difficulty I see really common with caring people, is they give their time and energy to the friends, to the family, to the ministry, to work, everybody, and then their name is not on the list. And then they just get tired and tired and tired, but then they can't take a break because they feel guilty about that. So being able to say, I want to have this harmonious balance of work, family, and recharging myself, or kind of getting some time for peace. And so that's where, family prayer time can really be helpful, especially if it's set up as, this is a relationship I'm building with God. I'm thinking of God who loves me and died for me. I want to be getting closer to him and being able to spend that time talking to him in some peace, so I can have that peace then to share with others. So it's really important to be able to step back and have that balance, where you're not just going, and my ministry is my work and I'm doing things for everybody everywhere all the time. I tire out. I need to have some time for me to be taking care of my spiritual needs and my the things that I need, and to have that balance. I'm one of the people that gets a turn. Number 9, I'm not tied to any particular possession or any particular routine or any specific activity. And there's different ways that you can kind of look at, how important is this? Is this something I'm using all the time, or is it just something like I'm filling the garage, I'm filling the closet, so something in our materialist society where they say, buy this, get this, have this, you tend to pretty soon have a house full of things. And so then, do I really need this? Or can I share it? Can I, have let somebody else use it or borrow it? That idea of I'm not particularly attached to this specific item, I can share it with other people. And like we talked earlier, they need to be respectful, responsible, use it and not break it. But if it is something where I have extra, can I share that with somebody who is in need? Can I be, generous that way? And then I live in moderation joyfully, and I'm not, falling into an easy life, and I'm not becoming greedy. And that's kind of that balance between those two, to say, like, I really want to live in a way where my life is balanced. I'm moving forward. I'm joyful, and that's one of the things that you're going to find as you're building virtue, is that you are more joyful, you are more peaceful, you're more calm, you're more confident, and you have tolerance for difficult situations, and you can stay calm. And other people are reacting, and you're still able to say, okay, I can handle that. We can figure this out. We will get through this, is a really good phrase, especially in marriages, to say, we will make it through this. This is difficult right now, but we're going to make it. It'll be okay. Anything that feels bad is going to reduce. We're going to come out of it. And holding that hope when maybe the other person is upset and they're really having a difficult time thinking of this ever going to end. So, and we can look at that last slide if folks, and last comments there about teaching others to practice moderation, helping the children to value the things that they have and be conscious of their possibilities. What can they do? How will they be able to help others or interact? How can they use their time? And that's something for kids to balance, to say, like, I have time for school, time for friends, time for doing stuff at home. And then teenagers, when they start to work, you say, like, I have the friends and school, and then I have to figure out how to get work in there and balance that out. And there's a learning time when they need to do that balance and value what they possess and their time and their talents. Helping them distinguish what's extra and what's necessary, and be reasonable, not just be impulse purchase. We want to buy this. And that's really something important for to talk through with junior high and high school kids, because they're living at your house and everything's being provided. And so then they have spending money, without really a lot of practice in, how this will, how I need to budget, or how I need to save for something that's maybe more expensive. And helping them do things with good taste, not necessarily just the cheapest thing, but spending their money wisely. And teaching smaller children to control basic appetites, insisting on self-control. And so the idea is that we can say, we're going to do this Saturday, or we're going to do this next week, that delay of when you're going to do it, it'd be okay. We're going to be able to do that. And are taking turns or sharing. And that's, something that's worth teaching, what the money's worth, when they're getting something, how to balance, do you want this right now or that? Because a lot of times kids are just like, they see it, they want it. If they have an allowance, they buy the thing, and then they have it and it's broken right away. And so one of the things as a parent is to say, well, if they make that mistake on little items, like a little toy that costs $20, compared to as a teenager with a car that they say, oh, it had a really nice stereo, but the motor didn't work. So it's like having that, we're learning on little things. They can spend their money, say, like, talking about it afterwards. How'd that work out? What would you do different? Because the idea is they're going to say, hey, I'm going to save money and get it. Next time I'll take care of it, or next time I'll buy a better one, kind of thing. So having them reflect on what happened to make a better choice is another good way to help them get that moderation and get more of a reasonable thing, instead of, getting something really cheap or something that's so expensive, and then, they can't afford stuff to do other things. Okay, so that was kind of a blast through 5 more virtues this week. And any questions, comments, concerns? I'll make a note to track down the Called and Gifted program and to look at that newsletter. Well, in fact, I could email Father that newsletter that I sent. It's covering, this article was for the month of May, so it's going to have the 4 different weeks for the dates there, but I will be able to share that. Just make a note to myself here to share that with Father, and I could get that to him earlier this week. Okay.
Dr. Joe, if I may, on the virtue of moderation, as a fledgling Christian, many times we want to do as much as we possibly can, because there's a hunger. At what
Yes.
point do you step back and say, okay, I need also self-care? And for this is where the virtue of moderation. I just want to hear your views on that, because we are anxious. We want to participate in practically everything that's going. We want to learn. There's a hunger. There's a thirst. But there comes a point where sometimes you become so exhausted. How do we achieve our spiritual target, so to speak, while at the same time there is self-care? Thank you.
Okay. So with that's a really good point, really good comment there. The idea of I'm so excited, I really have a lot of, I want to do more, I want to do everything all the time. And being able to look at that longer perspective of saying, like, I have, the rest of the week, then I have the month. What am I doing over the year? So maybe even just looking at a calendar to say, how much time am I putting into this? And then the balance is to say, I really want to spend some time going deeper. And even though the excitement is like, oh, I want to sign up for 15 committees, I want to do all these things. I want to be at church every night with different ministry every night and every weekend doing more things, helping more people because it's helpful and I'm excited. But putting a place in that schedule to say, I need to have some time for going deeper into, let me talk to the Lord there. Let me spend some time reflecting, meditating. Lectio Divina would be a good one. So if you could start with the idea of, I wanted to have some time for that recharging in the morning, thinking of the Lord and here's where I'm going. And then in the evening, same kind of thing, coming back. And so I noticed that, we started today that you said 1 decade of the rosary. That would be an important thing. Say one of those prayer times could be, I'm just prayerfully meditating on the rosary, and to spend the time. If there's a style that you like, some people like the sung rosary, some people like the rosary with scripture verses, some people like the rosary where they have religious art and you're looking at a different picture. But just to find the one that works for you, to let you slow down and really drop into, I'm having this time with Jesus. I need me calm with Jesus. And we could start with twice a day. That way you're kind of anchoring it, ordering yourself back in the direction that you want to go. So then my excitement, I can go do things, but then I'm coming back to just reflect and listen to what the Lord has. So Lectio Divina is a good one. The prayer of the divine office, if you have those, the Magnificat has the morning and evening prayer and daily mass readings. Things like that, or there's a lot of different things like Bible in a Year programs where it's 15, 20 minutes a day and you're reflecting on different scriptures. But the contemplation, if there's spiritual books that you want to read, but the idea of that balance is to say, I want to spend some time doing study and reflection. And if we can get 15 minutes in the morning, 15 minutes in the evening as a start, and then we can adjust it up and down from that. And then compare that to, what, like we had mentioned before about the monks in the monastery where they're stopping 5 times a day. They're doing the divine office, they're doing daily mass, they're doing scripture reading, they're doing spiritual reading during meals. They're spending 2 to 3 hours a day in just calm, quiet, listening to the Lord to receive. And then they go do their ministry. And so if you're starting with, hey, I've got 15 minutes in the morning, 15 minutes in the evening, and then you can say, well, the other end is 3 hours a day or all day in a contemplative life. What's going to be a nice balance to feed my soul? And the last piece that I would add to that is that just to look at how I'm doing in my peace. If I do this prayer, how long does that last before I kind of start tiring out? And say if it goes 3 days, to say, okay, that means I need to do every 2 days, that recharge. If I can go, and it lasts for a week, then you say, okay, then I need to do that, like once a week. And so you're really looking at, I want to stay in touch with the calm and not be just only focusing on the excitement and giving, because like you said, I will tire out. I want to check back, how much time daily. And Father could probably talk some more on that for just spiritual direction, to say how much time daily is needed to help us settle down and listen and receive from the Lord, because he wants to care. He wants to help us too. So is that helpful?
Thank you. Because many persons, many of us are back in church. Then we may have businesses or have family commitments. So it's growth as well. But
Yeah. So it's general starting is just, a morning time and an evening time, kind of beginning the day and ending the day in that kind of reflecting, centering, calming, receiving from the Lord. That'd be a good start.
thank you.
Other people? Other comments? I think I'm looking at my schedule for the next time I'm available is coming up. And that's going to be, I think, in 2 weeks. My calendar here quick. Okay. So yeah, the next one I had was for May 26th. So I guess that's 3 weeks from now.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Joe. Sisters and brothers, thank you for coming tonight. Let's see our final prayer, then we can give you the blessing, then you can have your rest. We're going to pray prayer to bind and blind demons. I'm going to pray this prayer. And just before we leave, I just want to say that strive to be consistent with your prayer life. Someone's phone is. Just try to be consistent with your prayer time. When you discover that you're slacking, then there is need for you to revisit that. And if at any time you want to talk to me, feel free to reach out to me. Don't say, oh, Father is busy, I may not reach out to him. Then something happened. You say, oh, I was trying to reach out to you, but I couldn't. Feel free at any time. You can message me. Whatever it is, we'll be able to work it out together. One of us the other night had a very terrible experience. And thank God that I was awake just at the time and we're able to tackle it together. Don't take anything for granted. Just be alert. But don't focus your mind on the demons, on the devil. Focus your mind on God. Build your relationship on God. Don't anticipate problems. But as we did during the discernment program, try to master the rules of discernment. When you are in consolation, think of what you would do when you are in desolation. So let's try to revisit the discernment rules and get ourselves acquainted with those rules. They are going to help us in moving ahead. In the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Most gracious Virgin Mary, thou would crush the head of the serpent, protect us from the vengeance of the evil one. We offer our prayers, supplications, sufferings, and good works to you so that you may purify them, sanctify them, and present them to thy Son as a perfect offering. May this offering be given so that the demons that influence us or that could influence us, you may want to name them or name the person, do not know the source of the expulsion and blindness. Blind them so that they know not our good works. Blind them so that they know not on whom to take vengeance. Blind them so that they may receive the just sentence for their works. Cover us with the precious blood of thy Son, so that we may enjoy the protection which flows from his passion and death. We ask this through the same Christ our Lord. Amen. Prayer to Saint Michael the Archangel, defend us in battle. Be our protection against the wickedness and snares of the devil. May God rebuke him, we humbly pray, and do thou, Prince of the heavenly host, by the power of God, cast into hell Satan, all the evil spirits who prowl throughout the world seeking the ruin of souls. Amen. Be with you. And may Almighty God bless you all, protect you, and guide you in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Sisters
Amen.
and brothers, do have a wonderful night rest, and I hope to see you all tomorrow. We have our Rosary devotion at 8 p.m. Do have a wonderful night.
Good night, everybody. Good night.